So I'll move my Chair's report. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Confirmation of minutes held on the 5th of September. I am happy to move those as a true and correct record. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Mayor Nigel. All those in favour? Against, carried. Okay, ooh, going too fast. Reports. We'll move to 7.1. So our actions register update. We just have the one on there. And that's obviously our regular update on the gallery. I'm sure that will come at our next standing committee meeting as that is out for tender currently. Thank you. Moved by Mayor Nigel and seconded by Councillor Parker. So we'll receive and note those. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Naomi, is she coming up?
Yes, she is.
Oh, yes, here she is. I welcome Naomi, our Community Development Officer, to the table to walk us through our Donations and Loan Subcommittee meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report is to present the recommendations from the Donations and Loan Subcommittee meeting on the 19th of September. So we'll take the report as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions from you or any other councillors.
Look, I'm happy to move actually, and there's questions.
Thank you. So we have Mayor Nigel is moving those recommendations. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Booth. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Well done, Naomi. I'll move to 7.3, request to access museum bequest funds, and I welcome Philip to the table.
Kia ora, welcome. Thank you. The report outlines a request by the museum for the release of 2 bequest funds which have been received over the last 10-15 years for general purposes for the benefit of the museum. What we're proposing in this report is that those 2 bequests are applied to the exhibition development that we're planning for the new heritage facility on Stafford Street to be completed in 2025. If you've read through the report, you'll note that we do have 600,000 in the 21-31 LTP for the development of exhibitions. That would enable us to relocate our existing displays with a bit of extra work to enhance them and to make them fit for purpose in the new space. However, we saw the opportunity to take the new space and develop something completely new and something that would be high impact and benefit not just the people of the Timaru district, but also act as a major visitor attraction for the region. The museum team have worked with an external design company called Workshop E. They are former museum professionals who have won awards for their museum exhibition designs around the country and have been overseas. And the plan that we have developed, the full concept plan, has been costed out at $3 million, which is a frighteningly large sum, but not beyond the scale for the amount of space we're looking at for the costs associated with a production of this sort. Now, to give you some idea on that, to relocate our exhibitions and enhance them, we're probably looking at about $1,000 a square metre. A high-end exhibition that makes full use of digital technology and immersive experiences is looking at around about $5,500 to $6,500 a square metre. We're looking at a 700 square metre space and $3 million, so that works out at around about $4,500 to $4,800 per square metre, which is certainly within the ballpark for this sort of thing. Now, to get that additional funding, the South Canterbury Museum Development Trust has begun work over the last 18 months on raising funds, and to date has another $600,000 bringing us to about 1.2 million. The release of these funds would then bring us up to the 2 million mark, which positions us strategically for a major application to the New Zealand Lottery Environment and Heritage Fund to bring us closer to the end result. And that gives us basically between now and June 25 to ensure all funds are in place to finish the job. Are there any questions on any of these matters that I've raised?
So I just wondered, with those funds at the moment that must be sitting there earning some kind of income, does that income get added to the fund, or is that income being utilised already by the museum? And if so, my question is, what are we giving up in order to use these funds?
Right, so you're referring to the bequest funds themselves. Have they been generating income? Yes, they have, and it's simply been put back into that fund. So they have grown in the time that they have been with the council.
Yeah, it is just the internal rate of return though, so it's low. So outside of this, moving forward, not that a lot of individuals bequest to councils, but we probably do need some policy to support that so we actually get better revenue in the future. But look, I am happy to move this. I've had conversations with the Museum Development Trust. I think they're doing a great job. This will get them to the $2 million mark, I think, doesn't it? And then it's sort of homeward bound in that regard. I would just add that I think a second recommendation should be that we recognise the contribution of Claire Collette and Betty Jordan somewhere in the new museum development, but I'm happy to move that. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess my question was about the money as well. So the money's actually sitting in a separate account. It's not part of that big number where we have 20 million sitting in and then we've got 200 million borrowed. So it's
in your reserve list that we had through council.
List,
it sits there, yeah.
It's just it's not going to make any difference to the bottom line.
No. Well, I mean, technically it will as far as losing reserve, but it is a specialised reserve.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, the Mayor's quite correct. And the auditors go through that list and look at it and check that. It doesn't sit physically in a separate bank account, but it is actually specified as a reserve, and the auditors check those reserves to make sure they're there. That's part of what they do when they're doing their assurance. So it is accounted for as separate funds.
I'm fully supportive of the decision. I've always been saying we just need to tidy those reserves up and use them for what they were given to us for. So I'm fully supportive of that. I just question the timing of this decision being before we've made the final decision on the theatre development. That's probably my only, and rather than go with the option to defer the decision, I'm happy to make the decision now, but of course it will be subject to the final decision on the theatre role.
Yes, and I agree with that. So we've got Mayor Nigel has moved option 1, which is obviously our preferred option, and also the acknowledgement of our of those estates of Claire Collette and Betty Jordan, and obviously the what's the right word? The designations of these bequests are subject to our theatre decision in a couple of weeks' time. So could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Pye, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Well done, Philip. And yeah, special acknowledgement to the Museum Development Trust for their fundraising. It's excellent. So keep up the great work, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you. Okay, team, moving to report 7.4, and I think we have Jess joining us today. So welcome, Jess.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Madam Chair. This report is to update you on community development activities, and I'll take it as read and happy to answer any questions as best as I can on behalf of my manager.
I just had the one question, Jess, sorry, just around the Safer Community Strategy. My first question is, how often is this reviewed? And my second question is that there's no date on the strategy, so I just wondered. Why not?
I think that's probably just an error, that we should have a date on it. And I'm not, Beth, do you know how often that is put together?
I can speak to the previous Safer Community Strategy, which was, I think it was drafted in 2020 or 2021, and it was only very much in draft form. It had not been completed and it was pending a full review. So this is actually actioning that full review process. So I would suggest that this will be a 3-year strategy, and then we'll review that again in 3 years' time. From here, we'll naturally an operational plan.
Nice, thank you. Hi.
Sorry, just a quick comment. With your youth advisory work, which I see you're going to bring a report back to this committee, but when you had your target group, I just wonder, do you include the TUIA candidates that we had through the mayoral mayoral jobs for task force, whatever it was called? Because I think they would be ideal candidates to be targeted, to be invited to be in that group.
I agree, and the youth advisory is a piece of work that is being done by Claire, my manager. So it's not a piece of work that I've been involved in directly, but I can definitely follow up with that with her and ensure that those 2-year candidates are part of that program, are part of it.
Nice, do we have any further questions? Excellent, so we will receive and note this report. So thank you, Claire and Jess. I'll just move that, I'll move that, and seconded by me, Nigel. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay, now moving to report 7.5, and I think we're welcoming Philip back. This report is a draft operational plan, 2024 to 34, and obviously Bede's coming to join, so I'll just hand it over.
Thank you. So the draft operational plan has been under development with myself and also Nigel Ingram, who has prepared this report, and then it's been put up for today. And of course, Nigel is no longer with us as of last week. It outlines where we see the operation heading, but also looking at some options which could be considered as to how it should be run. The plan itself, if you've had a chance to look through the detail, gives an indication of how we can move forward with this operation, which of course includes not just the theatre but the museum, and considering how they might join together. There is a lot of work involved in this and that yet to happen, and that we need to look more carefully at exactly how the architecture that is being developed is going to enable us to operate, to generate revenue, and to provide the maximum community good. There is a lot of detail in here, but on that note, I think we can open it to questions. Thank you.
Hey, Philip, what you're really asking for, apart from presenting that, is whether we're front with 30,000 to get a report so we can understand whether it's better to have it in-house or externally contracted, the running of the theatre, basically. Am I right there?
Oh, not quite. What we're asking for is that, well, it's really to give you an update and say that what we're going to do is go away and do some more work. It's to give you an idea of where we're at, but to go away and do some more work, and then once we've done that groundwork, bring back, knowing the importance of this, to tenders and procurement, a proposal about engaging a consultant. At that point, you'll have it, and you'll be able to approve it or not. What we're really saying is to give some indication. We're not asking, it's not likely to be hundreds of thousands. That's our sort of a ballpark of what we think it won't exceed, but we need to do some more work before we get there. So that's really what, so we're not asking for any money at this point.
Okay.
I have to say that's actually not quite clear in the options, because the option 1 is that council engages a consultancy service to provide advice and recommendations on the most effective governance arrangement and sustainable business model for the Timaru Theatre and Heritage Facility. So that's on page 29. So I would suggest that is asking for that. So if that's not what you're saying,
No.
the other option is that we keep it internally. We continue to work on this operational plan, So what is it?
Well, then, in council officers, in the financial and funding implication, council officers can undertake initial work to identify the various models and their respective funding and financing requirements that are used. And then council can then, modelling can be supported, but costings of this will be brought back to the Tenders and Procurement Committee for approval once quantified. So it's down there. So we weren't intending to go and spend any money without yet first bringing it back to the Tenders and Procurement Committee.
Probably just like to express my disappointment that we didn't have a document like this when we were asked to make a decision on the Theatre Royal back in December last year when we were relatively new councillors. To be fair, I would never go to a bank asking for money to buy a farm without a budget on how it's going to be run, and that's probably all I'll say.
I'll just follow. So, just following on, so everyone in the community is clear, we're suggesting to run the theatre operationally, it's about $458,000 a year.
With the figures that are here, this is very much a provisional budget based on initial figures, looking at similar theatres elsewhere around the country. The other aspect to this, of course, is that we're saying it will cost more, but that's revenue, that's not including revenue. So we're looking at the bottom line for rates. And the model sort of suggests that's where we should be heading. The other aspect to it is that we're also, of course, running a museum which is part of the Heritage Centre, which is joined to that. There are opportunities, we believe, for efficiencies across both by that joined up physical and maybe operational way of proceeding. But that needs to be explored further as we develop the operational model and have better detailed figures for the budget.
Sorry, Philip, and if we go back to, if we were to contract it out, obviously bigger centres have skilled people that could do that. Are they available in Timaru? Who would you?
Obviously no one operating in Timaru.
Yeah.
For example, in Christchurch you have venues Ototahi, which was known as V-Base once upon a time. Yeah. In Dunedin you have a similar organisation. They're both council-controlled operations that operate large-scale multi-venues across the city. Not quite the same sort of thing that we're looking at here necessarily. I did note that Nigel had found an Australian study from, what was the name of the organisation?
Charcoal Blue.
Charcoal Blue, thank you, which looked at the pros and cons of three ways of operating, which is in-house, commercial external, or arm's length, i.e. CCO. It did indicate that in Australia there's no real successful overtly commercial operation of a council-run facility. There are examples of the other two around the country, either direct council unit or arm's length trust or CCO, and both have pros and cons.
Yeah, no, my point was I did read that and it didn't seem like anything was successful, and I'm worried the size of our town, who you would actually get to run that.
Yeah, I know.
And if you wouldn't, if we don't think it's possible, there's no point in spending money on a report that's going to tell us that. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Look, I'm of the same view. On option 2, just work with internally. I don't think we should be spending money on this personally. And just interesting around structure, I just think we do have, and I think, largely it's actually operational, the structure, as opposed to governance, but I think there's an opportunity to be quite commercial in that structure, and probably leave that there, yeah.
So are you moving option 2?
Yeah, I'm here to move option 2.
Okay, so the option 2 is to stand up an internal working group to further develop the operational plan. And I fully support that. I feel that the report, on point 5, where it talks about that 458,000 per annum does not reflect in the draft funding impact statement. So my calculations is that it will run at a deficit of almost $1 million. And so that's concerning to me. So I think a lot more work needs to be done internally, and this is only the figures, doesn't include the museum. So I'd love to see some more work done on this internally, of some robust operational plan figures. Councillor Booth.
Yeah, probably subject to final sign-off as
Yeah,
well.
okay.
And I guess the other thing, take into consideration the cost of the depreciation, which we'll need to allow for that asset at 57 million.
Which I think, my understanding is, all of those financial impact reports are coming to the theatre meeting in a couple of weeks' time. So I presume those two things will talk to each other, and that is my expectation. Okay, so Mayor Nigel has moved option 2, seconded by Councillor Piddington, and it's all subject to Theatre Royal decision in 2 weeks' time. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Nice work. Thank you, Philip. Thanks. Okay, moving to report 7.6, adoption of age-friendly strategy 2022 to 2025. And I'll welcome Jess back again. And sorry, Beth, would you just like to introduce Jess?
Yes.
Jess, sorry, I forgot to do that.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jess. Jess is our Welcoming Communities, Connected Communities Coordinator, and she's speaking to this report on behalf of Claire Barlow for specifically the adoption of the age-friendly strategy 2022-2025. Hand over to you, Jess.
Thank you, Beth and Madam Chair. Yes, so as has been said, just the purpose of the report is to receive and adopt the Timaru District Age-Friendly Strategy, and happy to take any questions, again, as best as I can, on behalf of Claire Barlow, my manager.
Look, I'd like to thank, I've been involved for this for some time, and I remember when I first started as a councillor, having a conversation with a then SLT member at the time, and having no luck. They didn't see any need to prioritise this work, but that changed and it did get picked up, and it has been frustratingly slow, but it is a good piece of work for the council, and it's stuff that we should be involved with, especially with our ageing population locally. So I just want to express thank you to all those that have been involved both internally and externally. I would also like to add that these things need to be working documents that we actually give some consideration to when we're making infrastructure decisions, when we're making day-to-day decisions. They have to be at the forefront of our mind, and I think sometimes in the front of our agendas we actually should be reminding ourselves some of these things that we do and what we should be considering our decisions based on. But just like to express my thank you to all those involved, and I'm happy to move it as well. Thanks.
Thank you. I would just like to echo what Mayor Bowen's been talking about. I've been passionate about age-friendly community for some time, and I couldn't get any traction with our previous mayor, but welcome Mayor Bowen's supportive towards getting this up and running. And myself and a past employer, Michelle, spend a lot of time with consultation throughout the district, rurally and urban, and it's great to get this over the line. It is a living document. One that our community can be proud of and to keep working towards, to ensure that we respect our elders and to make sure that they live in a livable and accessible community. So thank you.
Hey, look at us. This is such a good field meeting. Loving it. So I've heard Mayor Nigel has moved it and seconded by Sally. So we will receive and adopt the Timaru District Age-Friendly Strategy for 2022-2025.
Apologies, I just wanted to make mention of one person, and that was Robin Baldwin, who I think we should be making mention of in town, and she was the one that really drove it from a community lens. So just note her involvement in senior sits and then aged concern over the many, many years.
Awesome. So all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Well done, everyone. Thanks, Jess. And consideration of urgent business items. There are none. Consideration of minor nature matters, none. So I will close the meeting at 1:40.